Hi guys, welcome back to Success Decoded TV. Today we're going to be having a chat with Heather Fitsell. She's basically a photographer who's managed to combine two of her greatest passions, which is photography and music, specifically rock bands. She's managed to take photographs of very big artists such as Def Leppard, Whitesnake, Blackstone Cherry and Evanescence. Let's go have a chat with her and see what she can teach us. Okay, Heather, thanks for coming onto the show today. Can you tell us a bit about how you got into photography?
At some point decided I wanted to buy a digital camera, and Canon are quite good and do sort of cashback deals at Christmas, and so decided to invest in something. I think it was probably after I'd come back from travelling and I'd been around just with a small point and shoot, and I thought, you know what, I need something a little bit better. I sort of enjoyed the photography, so I just picked it up and took it from there a little bit.
So when did you start this?
It's probably back in about 2008, I think, was when I kind of got the camera. 2007, 2008 is when I got the camera.
Brilliant.
And so it's sort of grown from there, actually.
Yeah, you've taken like a giant leap from 2008 to now, where you're sort of, taking pictures and photos of really famous rock bands. Mm-hmm. Can you speak about that sort of transition and how sort of you got involved?
Well, music's always been a passion of mine first and foremost, and I went to some sort of small local pub gigs and took my new little camera along with me. And what I found when I was taking the pictures was that they were all blurry and out of focus, and I figured it was, partly because I didn't really know what I was doing with the camera. It was still very new to me, but I didn't quite understand what I was doing wrong.
Okay.
I'd signed up, got a subscription to a particular magazine called Photo Plus, and they're sort of specific for Canon, so I was learning everything as I went along as best I could. But in that magazine, they do an apprentice feature, and what you can do is you can write in, say, I'd like help with this particular issue with taking photographs of dogs or taking wedding photos or things like that, and I actually wrote in and said I need some help with gig photography is what I'm interested in, and they actually wrote back to me and said yes, we'd like to run a feature. And what happens is you get to sort of spend a day or time with a pro photographer in that field, and then it becomes like I think it's about like a 6-page feature. Brilliant. In the magazine, and they talk through sort of the tips that they give you, that they work through what you're doing. And then you get sort of, I think it's 4 hot shots and then a shot of the day, which they have in the magazine, and then the photographer comments on it as well.
Was this a live sort of workshop that you attended?
No, it's just like a day where you get to spend, just you and the photographer and the guys from the magazine, so someone taking pictures of you taking pictures.
Yeah.
And it so happened that my first proper gig, which was through the magazine, was at Wembley Arena, photographing Def Leppard, Whitesnake and Blackstone Cherry. So
fantastic.
I was, it's quite an experience, and got to spend sort of the evening with a pro photographer. Did a bit of time beforehand, going through what I use and how to use the camera, did best things tips he had to pass on to me, and then got to go and use those in the field and have a little go at it properly and review it.
So you were essentially, when you got your first gig at Wembley Arena, that you were still testing and learning then?
Oh, very much so, yeah. It was
you
still
must have been
very
really
new.
Excited.
I think ecstatic, I think was the word. So, yeah.
Brilliant, fantastic.
It was, I think, and that was the key starting point. I think that was where it all started to turn. So,
how did you go from this one big gig to pursuing your career in music photography?
From that gig, I actually got interested in the band Blackstone Cherry, who were the support band at that particular gig. And then it was literally a year later, they were back over to support the American rock band Nickelback, and they were playing O2 Arena. But through a competition, they were doing a little acoustic show at Gibson Guitar Studios like a couple of days before, and I actually won 2 tickets to go to that show. So I'd got to know some of the Blackstone Cherry fans and things along the way, and went with one of those friends, and I took with me some prints of the pictures that had been in the magazine, and I also took along a copy of the magazine. It was a picture of the guitarist, was the picture of the day in the magazine, and also of the lead singer guitarist was one of the hot shots of the day. So 2 of the pictures actually featured in the magazine article. So I'd taken it along, and we waited around until the end, after the gig, and after everyone else going through doing the signing and so forth, and hovered around to the very end, so that, because they were basically kicking everyone else out, went up and I went, "Hi, could I get these signed?" And they're like, "Wow, these were amazing." And then were asking me the story about how it happened, and then asked if I could get copies of, they could get copies of the pictures, any copies of the magazine article and stuff as well. And I went, "Yeah, can I have a photo pass for Monday?"
Brilliant.
And they were like, "Yeah, sure, no problem," because they were playing in Brighton on the Monday.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much where it then started. I went down to the show in Brighton, and had a photo pass for that. Normally you're only, as a photographer, you're allowed to shoot 3 songs.
Sure.
And then you have to move out of the photo pit, which is for the benefit of the rest of the audience, because otherwise you're running around in front of them for the rest of the night. But on this particular show, they let me shoot the entire show, which was just incredible.
So you're saying, as in most of the times when you're in the pit, you only have like a certain amount of time there?
Yes, you've got 3, most of the time it's 3 songs, and then you're kicked out of the photo pit and you can't do any more photography. Some venues will actually eject you from the venue.
Yeah.
Others, you're allowed to sort of stay in the venue. But to be honest, if you can't get what you need in those 3 songs, you really shouldn't be there.
Okay. So there is that added time pressure.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's why I did the this gig in Brighton, where I got to stay for the whole show. And they had a support band playing, a British band, up and coming British band called Heaven's Basement.
Yeah.
And they were sort of doing the tour with them. I then went to another show in Nottingham like a few days later, and I got speaking to the drummer from Heaven's Basement, and got to sort of conversation through that. They got to see my pictures, and it's basically just become a bit of a roller coaster from there, because I got to know Heaven's Basement and they're over here a lot. They were doing a lot of support slots, so I got to then shoot bigger bands like Shinedown. Got to know other smaller bands, bands like The Crave, bands that sort of up coming through the circle. And then when Blackstone Cherry have been back, they've, I think it was a couple of years ago, they supported Alter Bridge. So it's back into the arena. So I almost kind of went a little bit full circle, so back into the arena supporting section again.
When was your first interaction with Blackstone Cherry?
Interaction-wise, that would have been when I did the Gibson meet and greet.
Okay.
That's when they actually got to meet me and know me, and they've liked the pictures I've done. Their bass player is also a photographer, and they like the work that I've done, and they're very nice people. They're actually very nice people, and I've asked them directly for photo passes. I've also gone via their PR and so forth, just depending on sort of where I was at the time and what I was doing pictures for. But they've just been really kind and supportive of the photography. So Brilliant. It's just roller coastered one from another, and through knowing the smaller bands, I've got to shoot bigger bands. And I think that's probably one of the keys, is making friends with bands.
So networking.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Heather, so those people that want to sort of start with photography, what sort of recommendations could you give them?
Pick up a camera. I think, to be honest, I don't think it doesn't have to be like the biggest flashiest toy. I mean, literally from a point and shoot camera, you can get some good ones at reasonable prices, and I think just go out and try something different. They're good enough that you can see what you like doing.
Sure.
Obviously they're not, if you want to do gig photography, it can be a little bit harder, but it's not just, it's also about sort of framing a picture as well. But I think, as I say, I'm not in no way trained.
Yeah.
I picked up a camera.
What did you start with?
My first camera was a Canon 400D, just with the basic kit lens.
Mm-hmm.
And I used that for quite some time, and then I sort of got a new lens and upgraded a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it was a 28-135, which sort of just has sort of meant I could cope with the low light better.
Yeah.
But I think it's a case of going out and giving it a try. You don't need the biggest and the best equipment. I think when I did the feature with the magazine, where it kind of all started, the guys from the magazine said that they get a lot of middle-aged men that are interested in landscape photography, and they said to me that that's why they were kind of interested in my story, because it was something a little bit different. They said, but one of the comments was they were reviewing my pictures in between the bands, because you only get 3 songs, as I mentioned before. You only get 3 songs. You had to, at Wembley Arena, you have to go out into the corridor, so you don't get to see the show. So you're looking through your pictures on the back of the camera. Yeah. They were looking at my pictures, as was the pro photographer, and they actually said to me, "Oh, you've got quite an eye for this." And the guy from the magazine said that, you know, they got these middle-aged men, like their landscape photography, which is, you know, nothing against it. We said, you can have all the equipment in the world, but if you don't have an eye for it, then it doesn't mean you're going to take a good picture.
What was your response, though, when you got that sort of feedback?
Well, I think that was sort of part of the little light that switched on in my head and go, oh, actually that's a nice thing to hear. That's a really nice compliment. I'll sort of take that on board. And I think the one that got me, though, was the pro guy was looking through my camera, and he goes, "Oh, you've got better pictures than me of him there." And I was like, okay. Yeah. So I think, you know, I have an eye for gig photography. I can't take a landscape picture for nothing. I don't see a landscape picture. Wedding photography, I couldn't profess to do that. Okay. I think, you know, there's lots of different areas of photography, and this one just happens to work for me. So.
Brilliant. So tell us a bit about your current camera. What is it, the one that you're holding there?
This one here is a Canon 5D Mark II. I have it through unfortunate circumstances. It was through inheritance money that I was able to purchase it. Brilliant. The problem with photography is it is expensive. It's not a cheap hobby if you want the best equipment. There are sort of middle range levels, different brands. I think in terms of photography, a lot of people are Canon or Nikon. But I mix my Canon camera with a different lens. I have a Sigma lens on here, so there's different brands that are a halfway point. I think if I wanted the Canon version of what I have on the front of the camera, I'm looking at a lot more money, and I just simply don't have that. I traded my camera in, and I traded in several lenses. I basically kept this lens, and that was it. And then bought this camera body, a flash, and a small 50mm lens, with basically doing a trade-in, and bought everything second-hand. What happened was I got the money through at the time when the Canon 5D Mark III came out. Okay. So everyone was selling their Mark IIs to buy the Mark III, which meant the second-hand price of the Mark II came right down, which is when I bought mine. So I was, you know, right place at the right time more than anything. And I mean, I have noticed a significant difference in the images that I'm able to get and in what the camera is able to do. Obviously, in the gig scenario, you're working with a lot of low light, and you can push this camera to do a lot more in lower light than I could with my old camera. But then I've also found that this lens works better on this camera than it did on my old cheaper camera. So it's a case of trial and error and trying different things. I mean, I know what I would like. You go through phases of having camera envy or lens envy. Okay. So I started out with my camera, and I had lens envy. So old camera, and I got a new lens.
What does that mean, though? What is lens envy?
I think when you're in a photo pit, you've got all the other people around you with the bigger, better, the longer. You know, mine's bigger than yours. Sure. And I think I got lens envy, so I got a bigger lens, and then I got camera envy, so I got the new camera, and now I'm back to lens envy again. So it's a bit of a vicious cycle.
So you build as you go, really?
I think so. Yeah, and it's as much as you can afford to do. I mean, I can't. What I've got now is very good for what I need. So there's lots of ways up to it. You don't necessarily need the big boy to start with.
Have you sort of explored other alternatives, obviously taking a cue from having a look at your website?
Yes. Something I've got into is I photograph for a club night. It's a club night called Ultimate Power. It's held once a month at the Electric Ballroom in London, where they play power ballads all night, Bon Jovi, Journey, Europe. And I basically just spend the night photographing the punters as they get increasingly more drunk as the night goes on. But you know, it gives them a little memento, and then all that goes up on the Facebook page on a Monday, so they can then tag themselves in a decent photograph from the evening. So and you know, I get paid for doing that. So great. I actually approached them about doing it. It was a club night that I'd been to before. I knew some people from the hardcore scene that did the same sort of thing, and I approached the guys that run Ultimate Power and said, you know, here's my proposal, what do you reckon? So they had one on for trial and it worked that way. I've also done some band promo photography. That's probably an avenue I'd like to pursue a little bit more, but I feel I need to get a little bit more experience and knowledge before pushing that. But I've sort of dabbled in it a little bit. And also I have been approached to do odd bits and pieces, like I did a literary festival in October last year, where sort of people are giving sort of talks about their books, so it's a little bit, you know, something a little bit different, but again, you know, it was an avenue, and I got some pictures in the local paper and things like that, and so yeah, I've just some other places you can make a little bit of cash in.
Yeah, there's alternatives essentially, but it's just about exploring, just going out, figuring it out.
Yeah.
So Heather, how can people get in touch with you?
I've just had my website redesigned. It's www.februaryphotography.com. From that you can also link to my Facebook on there as well. Only sort of my best pictures will actually go up on the website. There's also a blog on there that sort of lets you know who I've been photographing during the month. From there, so you can link through to Facebook where you can find some more photos. And if you're interested in having me along for a photographer gig, you can also get my contact details on there.
Great, thank you.